Hey, welcome back to Story Studio Network. I'm Erin Trafford, CEO here at SSN, and in today's video episode, we're going to explore some of the incredible case studies that we've seen develop in branded podcasting so that you can understand how some of North America's top brands are using podcasts to connect in with their audiences. Okay, so to be totally clear, one of the most common questions we get when we're chatting with brands, organizations, not-for-profits about the potential of launching a podcast is, but how does that even work? Or it can sometimes sound like, what does that even look like? So here's me giving you some concrete examples of the work that we've done at Story Studio Network over the last 3 or 4 years and how that can look, depending on the sector you're in, the brand you represent, or what you're actually trying to do with your podcast. So we're going to dive into some real world examples of the success stories that we've had at Story Studio Network and some of the unique, specific, and nuanced strategies that we've used with our clients to highlight the impact that they have on the world and on the market. So we're, as always, going to have a bit of a discussion here, but for more information or for links to any of these shows, just check out the description or the caption below. We've listed them all there. Feel free to jump around and, of course, get in touch if you have questions. So in the last episode on Story Studio Network's YouTube channel, we talked about the rise of branded podcasting at a very high level and how it really is changing the game in terms of authenticity and this whole idea of capturing attention. And what we've determined over the course of running this company is that the majority of our client partners come to us because they want to get a better return on their attention. They're not necessarily looking to increase their impressions or to go for likes or clicks or any of those things. What they really want is to capture more valuable attention. So the majority of our projects will really start with, okay, if that's the case, what kind of attention is valuable to you and whose attention is it that you want to capture? All right, case study number 1 is a show we've done at SSN called the 2030 Project. This is for you if you are in the not-for-profit space and maybe it's a situation where you don't really need your podcast to sell something other than an idea, or you need to re-educate the market about a perspective on something that maybe they're overlooking. This is a great case study for you. So let me explain a little bit more about the 2030 Project. We embarked on this show with the Daily Bread Food Bank, which is the largest food bank in Toronto, which is in Canada, and it is one of the largest food banks in the country. Now, the 2030 Project started in response to an annual report issued by the food bank. They have researchers on staff. They have advocacy experts on staff. They obviously have a lot of data that they draw from to create a report that outlines the state of hunger and food security in Toronto. They issued this report and then came to us and said, this is a very flat document and there's lots of information in here. How do we humanize it? Because there are stories here. There are clearly humans behind these numbers. And that's where we think we can have more impact. There's that word again, impact. This was where we started the whole project. So season 1 of the 2030 Project was an education exercise. We needed to unpack the data in that report and give it a human face. We needed to educate the audience about what it really means to be food insecure in the 2020s. In Toronto specifically. So we took 12 episodes and we did that through different forms. So we did interviews, there was a bit of narrative, there were some roundtable discussions with experts, with politicians, with policymakers. It really was designed to bring that annual report to life and to make it a point of engagement rather than just a point of passive reading. But then we took it further. In season 2, we went to the next level problem. But then we took it further Season 2 was about pushing the agenda and the advocacy. Once we knew we had that foundation of education in season 1, we were then able to start mobilizing the content to pursue action. So season 2 became all about painting a much more specific picture of things like the challenges with housing, the challenges with affordability, with guaranteed income, all of the adjacent issues that tie into food insecurity, which was the core issue that the food bank wants to tackle. For season 3, we got even more specific and went directly into an issue that is important to the leaders at the Daily Bread Food Bank and their board and their donors, which is the Canada Disability Act. And we produced a special series specifically looking at how that act can and will have an impact on food bank usage going forward. And we dropped it strategically into the market at a politically opportune time when federal politicians were debating the budget, the Canada Disability Act, of course, being part of that parliamentary debate. We were able to very successfully create new conversations about all of the issues that impact food security using the podcast as a foundation. The measure of success for the 2030 Project was the type of attention we were able to push toward an issue that everybody thought they understood. I would encourage you to go and listen to that show if you are in the not-for-profit sector or if you are working with an issue that is more advocacy driven. This is the power of podcasting. We can use it to unpack really, really big issues and drive focused attention. All right, case study number 2 is another not-for-profit. This one is called Parachute Canada, and they are an excellent organization that focuses on keeping people safe when they're at play, when they're at home, and when they're on the road. So Parachute deals with lots of issues pertaining to parents and kids aging in place and anytime you're in your car. So car seats, seat belts, crosswalks, speed limits, all of those things. They have a really broad range of issues that they tackle and they want to educate the public about. So they came to us because, again, similar to the 2030 Project Challenge, they had so much information that felt really static and was not getting the kind of attention that they wanted it to get. We developed a show for Parachute that was very different from any other show we'd created because we realized, hey, listen, to get your message heard, you need to reach the parents. You need to reach the sandwich generation. So what we did is we went out and we actually found parents to participate in the creation of their show. We did 12, maybe 18 episodes, and we brought in parents from across the country to sit in a virtual roundtable in most cases with experts and ask questions and bust myths and bring safety concerns and storytelling to the forefront and let Parachute drive that agenda. The result was a podcast that was hugely successful for the organization. It became much loved in their team as an internal communications tool, and it even drew a huge sponsor, which you can find out more about if you go and listen to season 2 of Popping the Bubble Wrap with Parachute Canada, who came and decided they wanted to support the production of the next season. So when you're a not-for-profit or an organization, you can also consider that when you're creating your podcast asset, not only is it driving your agenda, driving your advocacy, driving your engagement, but it could also potentially be drawing in sponsorship that you didn't otherwise have. I would encourage you to go and check out Popping the Bubble Wrap, especially if you are a millennial parent of kids under the age of 12. You will learn something, I guarantee it. All right, and for our final case study, I want to talk a little bit about Forestry because Story Studio Network has a very deep history of working with the forestry industry. We've in fact produced multiple projects in this sector. And you'd think at first blush that it wasn't really something worth talking about. Trees grow, trees get cut down. We use trees to make, lumber and lumber to make houses or whatever it is. But the reality is that the Forest Products Association of Canada had a huge education challenge. Much like our other clients, they wanted millennials to understand the real value chain of forestry. And so they came to us to create a narrative style podcast, meaning narrative basically means it's like a documentary style podcast that would bring the listeners along a journey that would slowly educate them and debunk myths that actually even I held before working on the show about what it means to forest responsibly and manage Canadian forests. And then the end result was, if we had done our jobs properly, which we did, by the way, and the numbers showed that, is that the audience was now open to an entirely new knowledge base and a new perspective on how forestry can actually help Canada achieve carbon net neutral and net zero goals. So it was a huge project. We did 2 seasons of Canadian Forestry Can Save the World. And then we have another show launching that is a more regional approach with the forest sector as well later this year. So there's tons here. And what I want you to hear from these case studies is that if you are a sector and you want people to understand things, you need to ask yourself, what is the value of the attention you're getting right now? Or what is the overarching narrative that is in the general public about your sector that you may want to rewrite? A podcast can be an extremely effective way of changing hearts and minds. And that we have shown in spades through our work with the forestry industry. Okay, so this is a much longer video than I expected, but I really wanted to give you a sense of some of the ways that we work with large organizations and brands at Story Studio Network. In another video, I'm going to explain how we work with small businesses and creators, because everybody can participate in the podcast landscape and the podcast universe. It really just depends on what door you want to choose to enter. So that's it for me. Make sure you're checking the description and the captions. Get in touch if you have questions. Thanks so much for watching. We'll see you in the next video.